Yeah, I would answer nut up or shut up.
Yeah, so for the first question is from the creationist crybaby. And he says, SFT, how do you explain that all humans, chimp, mice, rats possess ERV1, but not the primate specific ERV3, 4, or 5 insertions?
Okay, so let's work through this. So, and I saw Samir says shorter answers so we get through more. Yeah, so let's make these technical questions. We could do a whole debate on ERVs. I wrote a whole book on it. So how do you explain that all humans, chimps, mice, and rats possess ERV1, but the primate specific ERV3, 4 or 5 insertions? Okay, so firstly, according to the separate ancestry model, we would say that humans, chimps, and we've already, I think, demonstrated a number of ways why humans and chimps aren't related. And so if human and chimps aren't related, then they're definitely not related to mice and rats. Okay. And then when it comes to the mice and rats, you know, we can look to orphan genes, molecular clocks, DNA function. We can determine if mice and rats are related. Maybe that's an open question. Okay. So why is there essentially a difference in the ERVs? Why don't they all have the exact same variation of the ERVs? Well, we would say that DNA differences are not necessarily the result of mutations. And so they may just reflect the overall differences in function, or even the way that these ERVs are used within, let's say, humans, chimpanzees, mice, and rats. Okay. So we would still predict some kind of function. Now, so it could be just a difference in the overall function between humans, chimps, mice, and rats. Okay, so I wouldn't expect, you know, but see, where they're seeing a variation, they could be assuming that that's a mutation, when actually it could be a created difference. Okay, because remember, the evolutionist is assuming all DNA differences are the result of creation. But the one thing that I want to say is, and it kind of branches off something that Grayson said in his closing statement, is a lot of your ERV elements, they're not your full LTR, GAG, POL, ENV. Okay. Those are essentially what are involved in regulating genes, determining cell types, the placenta. The syncytin element of it is necessary for placental development. So I don't understand why we would say that's not needed. Okay. But, you know, antiviral protectors. But then you have a lot of just solo LTRs. What they say are degenerated ERVs. They're assuming they're degenerated ERVs because I could go through paper after paper. I've done hours and hours worth of presentations on this topic. And they're now showing that these solo LTRs, they are simply just a reflection of functional stretches of DNA. And so they have their own function. And so it's an assumption to say that they're degenerated ERVs. So that's my answer. It's the type of question where I would need to be face to face with creationist crybaby, and I'd really have to cross-examine good old crybaby here and get some more details on this. But that's how I'd answer it. So go ahead.
Yeah, I would answer nut up or shut up. Show me the functions of the ERV 3, 4, and 5, and what those functions are in primates. Since I'm not aware of any of those being demonstrated as having functions, then, you know, that's the end of the story for me. I got to see the evidence. Show me the function. And then for the papers that you did cite, still less than 1% of the total. All those LTRs, all the long non-coding RNAs, all the ERVs that have function are less than 1% of the total that we find. So 99%, no function at all that we've demonstrated. We don't know for 99% of them. So yeah, I'm perfectly happy admitting that, you know, less than 1% of all of these have function. Syncytin is functional. I'm not saying it's not functional. I'm saying that it doesn't need the GAG and the POL and the LTR for its function. That's what I'm arguing. It does. The syncytin ERV does not do viral mimicry. The syncytin is the area of the function. And the syncytin could literally just be a gene. It doesn't need GAG, POL, LTR. It doesn't need to look like an ERV at all. It could just totally be a regular gene and have the same functionality. So.
Okay. So I guess question was for me. I'll respond. Yeah, because the ERVs that are specifically involved in embryonic development versus the ones that are, let's say, specifically involved in fighting off exogenous retroviruses or even safeguarding during embryological development, safeguarding our bodies against microbes and viruses. Okay, yeah, the syncytin may be necessary for embryological development, but then your GAG, POL, ENV, and LTRs in their completeness are necessary for viral mimicry and fighting off viruses. So again, I would say, show me, since you're saying show me the functions in these specific ERVs. Firstly, in the 60 to 80% genome-wide activity, okay, lies pseudogenes, ERVs, allele elements. Okay, so in those regions that are active, comprise these DNA elements that we have. It's not just one or two functions. It's function after, notice this, paper after paper. Our results suggest function in early mouse development. In the lab, okay, they have a mouse, it's developing. They snip out one of its retrotransposons, a certain class of retrotransposon. It's developing, you snip it out, then it dies. It's literally, its development requires, look at this. I could do an entire 2-hour presentation on the functional nature of these. What is this? ERVs function in, these are herbs, human specific, cell differentiation and regulation of gene expression. Okay, here's this. So, he's talking a big game. He's posturing. This function alone destroys your whole position. Show me an ERV or an exogenous retrovirus going from whatever function they have in being an exogenous retrovirus or a dead virus. Okay, once it gets passed on, it becomes an endogenous retrovirus. So I'll say what I keep saying. Show me a non-functional endogenous retrovirus going from non-functional to something as incredibly as important in the placenta. Notice what this says. Of a mammalian ancestor. So apparently they're saying if the accidental infection of a mammalian ancestor by an exogenous retrovirus had never occurred, the placenta and the mammals that produce it, including humans, would have never existed. I like to exist. Our award-winning host likes to exist, Sam. You like to exist, Grayson. Apparently, if we don't have these ERVs, we can't exist. So I'm going to let him answer.
Yeah, I really
no,
do.
I'm going to ask my question. Show me a paper right now that shows a function like this, where without it, we can't exist. Show the evolution of that function. Go ahead. Pull it up.
Okay.
Give me the
Perfect.
name.
You ask this question all the time. I know this is not the format where I get to respond to this, but because you ask this all the time, I really want to address it.
Just show me the paper.
I really want to address it.
Go.
You never have an ERV go from non-function to function because they don't start at
That's why I said it's original function. Either original function or non-function. Show me an ERV or an exogenous retrovirus gaining the function that makes us and our existence necessary in the embryo. Pull up what's the title of the paper? Quit dodging. What's the paper
Every
title?
single retrovirus does viral mimicry, right? Like it does.
Okay, so you don't have a paper. Viruses. Thank you. You don't have a paper. You're just rambling. You don't have a paper that shows an exogenous retrovirus integrating into the genome, being passed on through the germ cell lines, and then gaining or altering its pre-existing ability to become necessary in the embryo. Do you have that paper? Yes or no? I'm holding your feet to the fire.
Look.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear,
it's a basic question.
Fair. It's just the question is whether or not you have a paper. We're just going to move through.
I'm saying that no paper will demonstrate that because you
exactly
don't start at
because your position's false. So I want the audience to know.
Can I finish? Because you don't start at non-functional. That's why you're never going to find something going
from
non-functional.
That's why I said altering its original function then. So either it's a dead virus, it's non-functional. How does it go from that dead state to a state where it has function and determining
it's never in a dead state,
acting as an antiviral response? Are you kidding me? The whole point of an endogenous retrovirus being fixed in the population is that mutations are supposed to kill that which it was in order that it's no longer harmful, and then it can actually be passed on. So you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about on endogenous retroviruses. You just admitted you don't have a paper, Grayson.
Look, because all retroviruses that incorporate into the genome prevent other virus infections. They're already doing the
embryological development.
Can I finish my sentence? Hold on.
No, because this is my question, and I'm asking you a question, and you've already failed. We don't need to hear your rambles. You've already rambled for 6, 7, 8 minutes at a time. You don't have a paper that shows a pre-existing endogenous retrovirus altering whatever its function is and becoming necessary for embryological development.
Because your premise is flawed.
No. The premise isn't flawed. Your position is flawed. You don't have a paper. And you guys have been saying for the last 3 years that you'll give me a paper. And then a PhD virologist puts out a video 6 months ago, Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, admitting that a paper like that doesn't exist. Or other evolutionists say, well, it just takes too long for that to happen. Now
Like
you're
your
saying the premise is false. You guys don't know how to come to an actual agreement on this, Grayson. So
your premise is false.
Yeah, good one.
The
Okay, so you
virus
don't have a
could
paper.
always make syncytin. Syncytin didn't change. The virus that
That's
infected
your
us
story.
could
I
already
get
make
you believe
syncytin.
that. I get you believe that. Give us a paper, man up, quit posturing, post the paper in the chat, send it after. That paper I showed you says without that endogenous retrovirus, we wouldn't exist, mammals wouldn't exist, you wouldn't exist, and you don't know how to show us how that's possible.
No, I'm agreeing that that's the case. I'm agreeing syncytin and the ERV is necessary. I 100% agree with that paper. We can just go ahead and move on because this is like the first or second. This is the first question still. And we've
I get the last word, so I'm just
going
going to say the audience has seen you don't have a paper, and you guys will never get a paper. So keep posturing on ERVs. But
it's like asking for a paper if proving that red equals purple.
No.